Joining us now to speak about this is Cosatu's JMC convener, Simon Hlungwani. A very good evening to you, Mr. Hlungwani. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I'll just start off with that excerpt that we played for you. The finance minister saying the cumulative effect of what government has rolled up for public servants comes to about 27%. He uses the term "Simazamile." Do you agree with this? And of course, he also denies the fact that this agreement goes against the spirit of collective bargaining.
Well, good evening to you and the viewers. Thank you for having us. We must say, as you could see, the minister was struggling to explain in Parliament. So, in other words, we are confirming that is undermining collective bargaining. However, what we are seeing as a difference is that at least he's bringing back the money that the employer had taken away, which means we are inviting him back to the council on the 31st when we go to conciliation. They must come back and give us whatever they were supposed to be offering in the first place. But it is to say that it is a strange thing that the minister would even struggle to explain in Parliament as if he's negotiating with parliamentarians, when us as public servants, we are waiting for them to tell us in the SABC that they are ready to talk. And they had that option, but they just chose to withdraw the offer when we went to the meeting where we rejected the same offer. So we're happy to hear that he says there's 3% is still available, and we're going to the conciliation because it's set down for the 31st. We just hope that he must stop wasting parliamentarians' time with explaining and trying to negotiate with them, because at any rate, they were not going to respond to it in that particular way. We are always available to negotiate and to go to the SABC at any given time. We asked them if they could keep the offer and open negotiations, but they failed to do that, and they chose the easy way out at that time. But if it means they're coming back to talk to us, let them come back. They must stop wasting Parliament time. Parliament has got many legislative work to do other than to negotiate with them right there in Parliament.
So the minister says what they've cobbled together brings to what they see as unforeseeable expenditure to 14 billion rand to cater for this 3% salary adjustment, that it accounts for almost a third of the public purse, the expenditure framework. And that really it's the best thing for everyone. But you had said that at some point that government allowed a draft resolution to fall away in the negotiations. Can you talk a little to that? And also how these numbers work out? Obviously, you know the breakdown of what workers are asking for and how much of that is going to go to the subsidies that government says is offering.
Well, I must firstly indicate that we are still resolute, because they had gone back and they've let the offer or the draft resolution fall away. We are still back at our 10%. So on Monday, when we go to conciliation, we are starting at our 10%. They must start wherever they start. And if they want to talk to us, we are ready to talk. But they must not bring their negotiators or whoever will represent them, and they come there only to waste our time, because time is ticking, and they know very well that the arbitrator can issue a certificate to strike if they don't want to come closer to us. However, I must indicate that, well, the other things the minister is trying to convince parliamentarians, because they failed to convince everyone else, including ourselves, in their propaganda where they were negotiating in media throughout during the week. But I must say, it then sounds like the Minister of Finance is assisting the Minister of DPSA, when this whole thing is the core business of the Minister of DPSA, to have managed it much better, but he made some flaws. So, but I must indicate that sometimes they include the 1.5%, which is a pay progression. That amount is not related to this COLA. And the gratuity is not the real increase, because it does not improve the pension. And as you know, pension is a delayed income, which you only take when you retire. So we need our pension to improve, so that by the time we retire, we don't become a burden for the state. So we are just inviting them to come back. They must think about making sure that they increase whatever he's talking about to ensure that we can get the 10% that we demand. Because we are resolute and we're not going back on that one.
The minister did mention in his budget speech that economic growth risks and risk mitigation the government faces. He includes the impact of industrial action, particularly at the ports and rail sector, amongst the factors that could constrain economic activity and reduce South Africa's competitiveness. I'd like to hear your response to that. I think as a member of the Tripartite Alliance, these are some of the discussions that you should have just in terms of the trajectory for the country to be able to convince investors to invest in South Africa, but at the same time, you can't forget about the grassroots.
Yes, I think the point he motivated very well is to tell government, I think he's trying to convince himself that next time they must be serious about negotiations so that they can avoid the strikes. You can think about the ESCOM strike. The ESCOM strike was avoidable. They just played their tactics and didn't want to give anything until there was chaos. And if you were to remember, we were at stage 7. And suddenly, when we were at stage 7, they then had the 7% that was demanded by the workers, which they could have avoided and gave the 7% without any strike, because the impact of that low stage 7 was impacting heavily on the economy, including the Transnet strike. It was avoidable. They could have just given the 6% from the go, and unions could have accepted at that particular time without a difficulty. Equally, if they do not accede and do not negotiate very well with public servants this time around, including next year for the next round, they will see a serious strike if they continue to behave in this way. We are saying to them, be serious about every strike, because we want our economy as well not to be disrupted. Hence, we have also offered our savings in terms of the housing scheme or the housing allowances that we have saved. And for your information, that amount is close to 20 billion now. We're saying it can be released to assist the value chain of the housing industry, and everyone will beneficiate, and therefore we're assisting the economy. We can avoid the strike only if the employers can become serious in this regard. So, that's what we're calling for.
What do you see going forward? I mean, it's clear that load shedding is here to stay, and the minister cited that domestically the increased power cuts will compromise an already fragile economy. You are saying that you've already given notice to government. You're hoping to see them on a Monday. But should you not agree, you've said you're reverting back to your demand of 10%. Do you think that there could be possibly a Black Christmas for workers?
We have already reverted back to 10% of our demand that we had in May. The reason why we did that is because the employer withdrew their 3%. They decided for the draft resolution to fall away, which means there was nothing else available on the table. So when they went back to 0, we went back to 10%. The notice was given because the process of conciliation is the General Secretary of the SABC as a council, where we are parties, who issues a notice or as to invite us as Labour to the conciliation, as well as invite the government to conciliation. Now, we are hoping that when the conciliator come or the arbitrator sits with all of us, they are not going to be as difficult as they try to play the games that they are playing in media now. That's not where they are wanted. They are wanted in the SABC to come and tell us that they have money and this is how much they have, and then we begin to talk. And in conciliation, at least it's slightly better. They can go back and forth, but at least if we can find each other, the strike can be averted. However, if they do not want to accede to our demand, there's a chance that the only recourse that the arbitrator will issue is the certificate to strike. And once he says that, it means you can only give a notice of 7 days and it will begin the strike. We do not desire a strike because it destabilizes a lot of things. We just want government to be very, very serious and committed into assisting and making sure that at least public servants are cushioned from the difficulties that they're facing, because it's not like public servants have got the special food that they buy or special transport they use or even fuel and electricity. We suffer the same consequences as everyone else, hence we want to be cushioned just as they are pushing themselves by giving themselves a 3% and backdate it to more than 24 months, as it were. That's why we're saying we're resolute, yes.
Cosatu, Simon Hlungwani, thank you very much. Cosatu's response to the midterm budget statement announced earlier on by the Finance Minister.